Hey there YouTube, back with another Hawk DLX video. I've ridden this bike now for about 220 miles. Absolutely love it. This bike is awesome. Perfect for me really because I'm not really a daredevil. I'm not looking to go real fast off-road or anything, and I'm not looking to go rock climbing or rock hopping with it or anything, you know. Just something fun to putt down the trails and everything with, and it's street legal so you can get to the trails with it, so that's good too. One of my dislikes on this bike is at 55 miles an hour, it just feels like it's humming, man. It feels like you're working the motor too hard, in my opinion. So I'm going to do a very common modification today and do a gear swap, or sprocket swap I mean. Rear sprocket, front sprocket, and chain. These are all from JT Sprockets, and I just ordered them off Amazon. But anyway, here's the part number for my 45 tooth rear sprocket, and then here's the part number for the 17 tooth sprocket. Hopefully you can see it in there. The 17 tooth front sprocket. And 128 link. This is the black chain. I thought I ordered the gold one, but I don't care. It's just a chain. I don't know if any of those is the part number or not. Let me see. No, this is probably the part number. So yeah. So we're gonna get to that. And in order to do that, we're going to have to remove this axle nut, back out all these tensioners, take those off. We'll come around here to the other side. We'll remove this chain, and we'll have to remove this cover here to get to the front sprocket. So we'll do all that, and first things first, I just put this thing on the bike lift here. And I always like to run a ratchet strap up and over the bike, just because, you know, if you're wrenching on this thing and you get to wiggling and stuff, you don't want it to fall off there. It's actually pretty stable on there right now, but you don't want it to fall off. You know, these bikes are cheap and people usually don't care about dumping them and stuff, but you know, why cause extra damage if you can easily prevent it? This is a Craftsman motorcycle jack slash lift. Had it for a few years. Works really good. It's really stable. Holds up my Harley even. Oh yeah, something else I'd like to add. These Hawks, they get quite the name for a starter bike, but I've actually owned Honda XR 650, Kawasaki KLR, and I generally ride Harleys on the street. But yeah, they're not just for beginners. This is a pretty good cheap bike, man. I mean, for less than $2,000, if anything happens to it to where you can't ride it anymore, you could just buy another one. Or you know, these things are popular enough now. You can buy parts for them at a lot of different websites. Also locally on your Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or whatever shopping outlet you prefer to use locally, you can find these things that people, you know, have given up on, and they're selling them super cheap. I've seen them go for $400 or $500. You know, a lot of times the plastics will be broken and stuff, but if you needed a motor or something, or a starter or whatever, you know, the parts are available. So if that was keeping you from buying one of these bikes, you know, don't let that be the reason that you're not having fun. Anyways, to the task at hand here. Let me grab some tools, put a ratchet strap on this bike, and we'll get started. Alright, we are back. The bike is more or less secured to the stand. Grabbed an assortment of tools here. I'm not going to tell you what to use because it's all personal preference really anyway. I will say that these bolts on the side cover are 8mm. The axle nut, which would be on the other side, is a 19mm. And then this master link, I usually use needle nose to pop it off there, but you could use any damn thing you want to use. And then I mean, yeah, that'll get you started. So I just grabbed an assortment of whatever I'm going to use. And yeah, okay, well, let's do something. I think I'll get started by taking the chain off and removing the back tire, or the back wheel, we'll call it. Okay. Alright. In theory, this ought to come off easy because it's new, you know. If you wait till it gets all rusty, then probably won't come so easy. It always goes a little harder when you get the camera on. There we go. Take that maybe a little flat link here. There we go. Out so it doesn't get lost in the driveway. Not too concerned with it getting dirty because we're replacing the chain anyway. Just match the link aside. And then we'll take the 19mm and we'll remove this axle nut on the other side. I'm just using the impact because why not? I have one. I was thinking we had to remove these tensioners, but maybe we do not need to. Actually we will, because when we pull this axle out, they'll just fall off anyway. So I'm just kind of setting aside these parts over here in kind of the order that I took them off in. And I will go grab a rubber mallet quick and knock that out of there. Okay, so there's spacers in here too that you're going to want to keep track of. Looks like we got a small one on the right side for the caliper, and then we've got the thicker one on the sprocket side. When I put this back in, I'm going to grease it because I'm noticing right now it's completely dry. We've got all this. Pull this out. Throw this one on here. Spacer. Well, let me see. That'll be that spacer. On the other side, yeah. All right. Set that down. The brakes are kind of stuck right to the caliper, or this. Brakes are kind of stuck right to the rotor. Well, I'll go ahead and wrestle this off and then we'll get to changing that rear sprocket. So we'll be right back. Okay, I wanted you guys to have a look at this here, this brake caliper. The spacer is actually built into the caliper bracket, and this is what was in here. And the reason I was having trouble is it helps if you stick a flathead or something in between these brake pads and just push the piston in a little bit so that it's not so close on here, and then you can kind of work the caliper off a little bit, and then this protrusion here that's into your hub here will just come right out, and then this whole thing will slide off. And then this caliper bracket has a notch here that goes onto this peg on the swing arm. Okay, So that's how that whole thing will set up on the brake side. So yeah, we got the wheel free. I'm gonna go ahead and grab a bungee cord or something so we're not leaving this dangling, the weight from the caliper and the bracket dangling on the brake line. And we'll get that tied up, and then we'll get this out and change the sprocket. Okay, here we are. We got the wheel up here. These are 14 mil, so we're going to need to remove these. They go to the cush drive, but this one here is actually the one that's going to hold this sprocket on here. So we're going to need ring pliers to remove the snap ring. Good old Moto cheese sends out a reminder as to not stretch this thing too crazily, because you want it to go back on here and you want it to seat completely down into this groove, you know. You definitely don't want that coming off, so see if we can get that out of there. Be done with one part of it anyway. Get this up and over. When she started like that, you can usually use a flat prying device and get these O-rings to come off, like so. Once you're about halfway, she'll give up the goose. So there's your O-ring, or your snap ring, or whatever you want to call it. 14 mil here. Got some good old Chinese Loctite on there. You know what? I'm just going to use the impact. It's just so much easier. Probably not the right thing to do on our Chinesium hawk bikes here, but see if we can make easier work out of it. There's that one. Yeah. You don't have an impact. I mean, you don't need it, but man, it makes things a lot easier. There we go. Keep track of your bolts, or your nuts, guys. Keep track of your nuts, guys. Alright. There's your pegs for your cush drive here. Got to take these out because we need them on our new sprocket. Tap those out. This one says 428 50 tooth. Stock was a 50 tooth. Here's these. We're gonna clean these up. Get this red Loctite off. We'll put some blue Loctite on these before we reinstall. Put all your parts to the side. I'm just gonna go ahead and inspect these bushings for the cush drive. Even though this bike only has 200 miles on it, you know, you don't really know what kind of condition that they were in from the factory, so never hurts to just give it a once over and check them out. These look good. Check the bearings too, because I heard that these aren't the best quality either, so give them a spin and listen. One's quiet, don't hear anything. Check the other side when we get to that point. So we'll just grab the other sprocket over here. Just mock it up and see what we got here. You can see this sprocket is sort of pie panned on one side. The other side's just flat. And I'm going to assume that the part number and the pie pan's probably on the outside. So we're just going to make sure our holes line up, which they do. Check to see our clearance for our snap ring. Looks like it'll be fine. So let's go ahead and clean up our fasteners, and we'll be right back with installing the new sprocket. Alright, we're back with your sprocket here. As I clean these things up, I just stuck them. I flipped the sprocket over and lined up the holes, and then as I cleaned the cush drive studs up, I just dropped them into these holes. What I was thinking is kind of make it easier for me to just whoop and then get it all lined up and set into place. And give it a couple of taps here because it doesn't quite look like it's lined up. Oh, you know, I know what it is. These little tabs here, I bet got to be lined up with that. Is that the case? I'll try it again. Maybe this groove goes to the bottom to line up with these tabs. Try it this way and then, we'll try it this way. Okay, looks like I might have been exactly backwards. Looks like the pie pan recess thing probably goes to the inside so that it locks in the tabs on these cush drive studs. There, see that one's locked in? And then the lock ring would hold all them tabs straight, therefore keeping them from spinning or keeping them from spinning their nut off. Yeah. Alright, so seen it on camera. I was wrong once. Don't tell anybody. As promised, we're using Loctite here. It is blue, even though for some reason they changed the color of the tube to red. It says blue right there. Don't know why they did that. Save money, make more of a profit probably, I'm guessing. Well, that's a bit much, I guess. Put a dab on that one. And so on. I cleaned up the nuts a little bit too. Just like it when my nuts are clean. Get these on there. Spin them down by hand. Now, even though I did use an impact to take these off, I'm not going to use an impact to put them back on because I don't trust this hardware not to break. That impact does got an awful lot of torque. I use it for moving lug nuts off from cars and such, so got a little power to it. Okay, before I snug these down all the way, I'm just going to go ahead and put this snap ring back on there. And it should hold all this together and keep those from turning at all when I'm tightening it down. So we'll get this on the ring pliers. Spread it out just enough to get her on there. Well, I think we will. Alright, well, won't bore you guys with watching me struggle with that. I'll just be back when I get this locked down and these tightened up, and then we'll go on to the next step. Time is money, right? Okay, so we're back with the rear sprocket here. I got this lock ring on here and tightened all these down to no specific torque spec. Just, you know, like about 6 ugga-duggas, you know, I don't know. They're tight, they ain't coming off, they got Loctite on them. After I did put this on, I went through with a rubber mallet and tapped all the way around the sprocket for a few minutes, and then took a screwdriver and set it on here and tapped it with a rubber mallet just to make sure that this circlip or ring or whatever the hell you want to call it, it's all the way down here and in that groove. Because essentially this snap ring is what holds your sprocket to the hub. You wouldn't want that to come off. So yeah, there we are, new rear sprocket installed. We'll go ahead and just put this back on the bike, and we're not going to tighten up any of the tensioners obviously because we won't know all the tension until the chain's on. We'll go ahead and throw this back on the bike and go to the next step. Okay, rear tire's back on there. All pieces of the axle assembly are in place, including the axle nut, and we're just leaving all this loose. It's basically just there for mock-up and representation of it where everything's got to be. Quick tip is go ahead and make sure you have this spacer here in your hub and this protrusion here in your hub, along with your caliper bracket lined up on that peg. Make sure you have all those things together before you even start this axle shaft in there. I just had the axle shaft in here hanging out and just tucked in here just a little bit so that when I lined everything up perfectly, I could just quickly slide that right through. And I did put a good liberal coating of grease on that entire axle shaft except the threads, because I'm going to use some Loctite on this and I'm going to torque that down, you know, I don't know. I'll look at the manual, it probably does have a torque setting. So anyway, back wheel assembly's back on there, and it's going to be a time to address installing the new front sprocket. I'm just going to go behind this cover here. I think I got you zoomed in so you can see. I'm going to remove that. I think it's just going to be two 8mm bolts, one here, one here. Get past the shifter here. Hope we can get past the shifter without removing it. Yeah, there we go. Hopefully this bolt's not so long that it won't come out with the shifter there. I don't think it is. Well, let's get the top one and see. Maybe that one just... Boy, it's been a bionic Chinese man put that one in. Oh yeah. Thin that one out. See what the bottom one wants to do. There. Get this out of here. It would have been easier to remove that shifter here, but I didn't. So those look like probably a 10mm. This is real easy to take off. Just these two bolts here. Kind of turn this, pull that off. This will come right off of there. Old chain will just pull right out of there. It's kind of cool. Almost has like a little case saver here. I don't know if all the Hawks had that or not, but this one seems to. Let me show you a little glimpse of that there. Like a little case saver right here, in case you lose your chain. And the chain will bind up and hit that before it smashes the crap out of your case and lose your stator cover and lose all your oil, and bad things will happen to you. Alright, let me go grab a 10mm and we'll get that front sprocket off. Alright, back here with the front sprocket. Another quick tip here. For getting these off easily, you should probably loosen these two while you still have the chain on and some tension on the back tire, so you can just put the back tire down on the ground and it'll stop this from spinning. Because what I actually did is just stick a screwdriver in the sprocket here, and there's like a little lip there on the case, and use that to hold the sprocket still while I broke these free. But, you know, it's not impossible to do after the chain's removed. It's just probably easier if you were to do it while the chain is attached. Okay, so we just give this thing a slight turn, and you'll see that this retainer has the grooves in it, just like our spline here, our drive shaft spline. And then line it up and it'll slide right off. And then just remove your front sprocket. Pretty much the same. This says 428/16 tooth on it. And we'll go ahead and grab our new sprocket. From JT Sprockets, not a sponsor. I buy everything with my own money. I'm not lucky enough to be sponsored by anybody, but this one here is the JTF 259-17. The -17 I assume is 17 tooth. And then we just line up the splines on this here. We'll put our retainer back on. And then line up our holes here. Our sprocket to meet up with it there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put a drop of Loctite on these bolts. There obviously wasn't any Loctite on them, but as a preventative measure to where hopefully they won't come out, we're going to go ahead and put a drop on them. There. Just a dab will do ya. Down, and then once I get the chain installed, I'll go ahead and snug these down all the way before reinstalling the cover. And now I'll just get them down. And that's pretty much all there is to changing this front sprocket, guys. It's not a big deal. This whole bike is really easy to work on. Let's see, maybe I can get them a little snug like this. Same way I took them off. I don't really want to damage that sprocket, so snug them down a little bit. Just so the Loctite seats where it should be. And yeah, I'll check the torque on these a little bit. And then, alright, next, the only thing to do is to throw our chain on there and set our tension, and boy, this job is done. I mean, quick and easy. So I'll get that chain out and get that on the bike and get her moving right along. Take this thing out for a ride and see how much the top speed has changed. Okay, so we got the chain just kind of set there, set in place. And I'm just gonna, I've got the chain already on the rear sprocket here, and I'm just gonna kind of roll it onto the front sprocket. Roll it around here. And then tension's not gonna be so easy. To shove this tire as far forward as we can get it. And then, okay, the trick I usually do for this is I actually run it off the rear sprocket, and I put my master link in here, and then I'll just walk the chain on the sprocket. Let me see if I can show you what I mean. Take the chain off the sprocket. It makes it a lot longer. Put the master link in here. And the cap. Make sure we get that cap all the way on there. Get that cap all the way on there. And then, let's see, the chain will be going in this direction here. So we'll want to put this clip facing the same way that it'll be, where the chain will be spinning. So that if anything gets wound up in the sprocket, like grass or whatever, it doesn't hit this master link clip and knock that off of there. Cause you to throw your chain and leave you stranded or worse. Okay. Well, I was gonna say, see if I can get this on camera. Yep. So our master link's on here, and usually I can just get it started on the sprocket. Make sure she's meshed with the teeth pretty good, and then just walk it on. Like this here. Gotta get it out of the sprocket itself. Oh, I should have removed this chain guide here for the shield. me see. Really like that anyway. Really. Maybe if I walk it on from the top, it'll be better. Just kind of mesh it in there, and just kind of walk it on, just like that. So we're on the rear and we're on the front. Chain's installed. Spin it a couple times here. Yep, we're good. Master link is on there. Warning guys, about to say something stupid. This chain right here, the grease on it has a very specific smell from JT Sprockets. I'm completely aware that most of the oil on the market in the United States is Arabic, you know, Middle Eastern oil. But I grew up in the 80s and 90s. To me, that particular smell of grease and oil just smells like America, man. Smells like old carbureted cars, you know. Reminds me back when I was a kid working in my Uncle Joe's garage and working on all these old carbureted cars and stuff. Anyways, enough blabbering. What we gotta do here now is set the tension and make sure that our tire is aligned. And I think probably the best way to do that is, let me show you. On the rear tread of the tire, there's like a seam right here. This seam right here. And if you look to the top of the tire and look down that seam and directly at that rear shock, I think if you line those up and then check your clearance on both sides, that's probably going to give you the best idea of aligning this tire. Could be wrong. If I'm wrong, go ahead and tell me a better way in the comments how you go ahead and align this. But that's what I'm going to do. And then you just tighten up your tensioners to proper chain tension, and then lock down your axle nut. I'm going to put some Loctite on that, and then we'll be good to go. So yeah, bring it back at that point. Also, I'm going to snug these two nuts down and put that cover back on. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. Alright, so scratch that previous comment that I had about aligning the seam with the shock, because that's just stupid. There is markings here for you to align it on both sides, providing that they're actually right, and then you would pretty much know if you had this thing out of alignment, because your caliper would be dragging on that disc where your brakes would be dragging. So as you can see, got it lined up pretty good. And I did go ahead and grease that up and tighten down this axle nut on the other side. This side is a 17, that side is a 19, so you'll need to put a 17 wrench on here probably and tighten that one up. And then I went ahead and snugged up these tensioners just so you don't lose this nut on the trail. Okay, pretty much last step now here, guys. Well, here's your chain tension here. Go ahead and tell me that's too light, or that's too tight, that's too loose, blah blah blah. Go ahead and drop a comment if you want to and say, you know, that's not the right way to do this, but that's the way I'm doing it. Cover, we'll throw this cover back on, pretty self-explanatory. Just 2 bolts there and we're all set. So I'm gonna hook that up and then we're gonna drop this down. I'll be back in what seems like 2 seconds and tell you if there was any difference in the top speed. Okay, so we're back from a quick test ride on the Hawk, and it seems like about 5 mile/hour difference per RPM. So like 6,000 RPM in 5th gear, getting like 56, 57 miles an hour. So yeah, it basically accomplished what I wanted it to. It's not revving out really high, doing normal highway speed. The chain tension stayed right where I adjusted it, so that's good. I'll check it periodically for chain stretch. I did put thread locker on these bolts here for the front sprocket side cover there, and thread locker on the axle nut, and grease the axle shaft. yeah, got it all together. Hey, if you guys are into the hawk videos, you know, give this video a thumbs up. If you're into all the videos on my channel, including small engine repair, air gun reviews, the hawk videos, we're gonna have some Harley videos coming up. Hopefully some riding videos once I get an action camera. Yeah, if all that sounds interesting to you, please consider subscribing to my channel. It really helps out, helps YouTube to realize that you guys enjoy the content that I'm putting out. So yeah, if you're interested, please subscribe. And once again, as always, thanks for watching.